Moog once said, "There is a level of reality where there is no time, there is no space, there is just energy." I think that has great implications for what goes on between a musician and their instrument. As a musician myself, I can relate to this experience of transcending time and space and entering a state of consciousness of pure creativity in the moment. The invention of the modulated synthesizer by Robert Moog was revolutionary to music and its ability to be produced electronically. Today I'm going to discuss a brief history of the synthesizer, who this Robert guy is and why his synth was so special, and what impacts his works had in music. One of the earliest electronic instruments, the musical telegraph, was invented in 1876. American electrical engineer Elisha Gray accidentally discovered sound being generated by a vibrating electromagnetic circuit. This was the first example of a device that could generate a tone on its own. And later, in the 1920s, a very unique instrument was created called a theremin. Unlike any other synthesizer, theremins are played without any physical contact by the performer. By moving your hands close to two antennas, you can control the volume and pitch created by the instrument, taking air guitar to a whole new level. There were many other sound-generating devices that emerged in the coming years, but it wasn't until the 1960s that the game changed entirely and the synth made its debut in pop music. This was made possible by the innovation and hard work of Robert Moog, the man that brought a radical new approach to the instrument. Bob was an engineer at heart from a young age. At just 19, he founded a company that built theremins. This hobby turned into a business that financed his way to a doctorate degree in electrical physics at Cornell University. Just a few years later, in 1964, Moog released the first ever voltage-controlled modular synthesizer. One thing that made Bob's design unique was that it was the first to use a keyboard as a controller of the sounds. This initial model was rather large and expensive to make, but Robert was very motivated to make this a more portable device. In 1970, the Mini Moog, which was the most revolutionary instrument of its kind, considered by many, this synth came into being during a pivotal time in musical innovation and first fell into the hands of some legendary progressive rock musicians, Pink Floyd, Rush, Yes, and the Beatles, to name a few. Over the next several decades, there were many technological advances and new manufacturers joined the growing industry, making the synth more accessible to musicians around the world. The impact the Moog had on music was far greater than imaginable at its time of conception. In a 1972 interview, Stevie Wonder said, "The Moog synthesizer is a way to directly express what comes from your mind. What you're actually doing with an oscillator is taking a sound and shaping it into whatever you want. A year and a half ago, I couldn't have done these kinds of things." It's now 2018, and we're living in a digital age. So you can now access the many sounds of the Moog synthesizer simply by downloading music software and using it as a plugin instead of having the actual instrument itself. But there are still thousands of Moogs being produced, and many musicians chase the original vintage sound of the old beast itself. The synthesizer paved the way for new ways of unlimited creativity in music, and it gave musicians access to an infinite realm of sounds to use in performance and composition that were not before accessible through any other instrument. There is a blur between energy and consciousness. All material is conscious to some extent. I know that when I'm working on synths, I feel I'm making a connection with it. To me, the synthesizer was a source of new sounds that musicians could use to expand the range of possibilities for making music. Robert Moog passed away in 2005, but his sounds and his synthesizers will be heard for life.